evening, everyone. I hope everyone wrapped up late and is enjoying the food. I'm Gabby. I'm one of the outreach coordinators here at Taos County for Economic Development Corporation. Thank you all for joining us for our final mentorship workshop. Before graduation, graduation is required and it will be held during our local food fiesta on August 9th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. It will be here in the Hacked Room at TCEDC, followed by a barbecue lunch from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. featuring regional smoked meats, vendors, and other activities, so please stick around after for the local food fiesta. Just a quick reminder, mentees will be presenting their final projects at this graduation. We've already emailed the prompts, but we also have hard copies available over here if you want a refresher. And please send your digital presentations to either me or Abby by Wednesday, July 30th. If you have a digital presentation, you can just send us a copy, or if you're doing another form, you can just send us a brief summary, just so we can have our scheduling organized and our tech support as needed. Does anyone have any questions about graduation or the presentations at this time? Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Abby then.
Yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Again, like Gabby said, I think this is like one of the biggest turnouts that we've had. It's really exciting to see everyone in the same place at the same time. So thanks so much for coming. I know summer is really, really busy for everyone, so I appreciate you guys making time in your schedules to come to the workshops and to meet up with your mentor and mentee. I am really excited to see people's presentations at graduation and just get a little glimpse into what you guys have been doing, because Gabby and I have visited some people's ranches and seen what you guys are working on with mentees, but obviously it's hard to make it out to everyone's. But if anyone is really proud of something that they're doing and it's like, hey, Abby and Gabby, you should come see this, let us know, and I would love to come out and do a ranch tour or maybe help you guys out with a little something. But another thing to cover, this applies to everyone, not just mentees, is that, do you remember at orientation we gave you guys a manila folder with a bunch of papers in them, and one of them was a timesheet? Yeah, okay, so we just need the timesheet completed at graduation, and that way we can give you guys the closing stipend, because don't forget you guys get another stipend of $550 at graduation, but we just need to make sure that everyone has gotten in their 10 hours of workshop time, and if you couldn't make it in with mentorship workshop time, then you should be coordinating with me to make sure that you fulfill those hours otherwise, and then your 30 hours of on-ranch time with your mentor/mentee. And as always, reach out to me if you need help coordinating any of those hours or have any questions or concerns. But yeah, we're really excited to, again, see presentations and just celebrate graduation, not only with our little ceremony, but the fiesta in general, and a bunch of free food and vendors, and I think Elise will be bringing her sheep maybe for petting zoo. So if anyone hasn't petted a sheep who wants to, then it's your opportunity. And yeah, I'm going to pass it off to Lucas Salazar, who is joining us. He is heading the Matanza project at TCEDC with a lifetime of experience in ranching and meat processing, almost everything. But yeah, Lucas, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background? Can we give him a round of applause or things?
Thank you, Abby and Gabby, and thank you, cohort, for the warm welcome. I know, it's actually probably maybe about half-ish or less than half, maybe in a little bit. So, and I'm gonna probably want to accelerate this a little bit, because I think there's certain really juicy things you all are gonna really want to spend some time on, and maybe some things not so much. For the grant, we kind of have to hit each topic. We'll give everything a little bit of attention, but especially since we're starting a little late. So maybe let me get the temperature real quick on how cool are people if we go over. If people are okay if we went over by 15, 20, 30, would you please raise your hand?
We're okay.
This is Taos and this is New Mexico.
It seems like a minority though there. Just to confirm, please raise your hand if you are not cool with sticking around past 8 o'clock. it's rough. So I think it makes sense. I do a little trimming and cutting and given that started a little late. And part of that is my fault, and I'll apologize. Copies couldn't get done earlier today, and so I ended up being a hustle kind of the last minute and pushed back. But at any rate, yes, Lucas Salazar. I am the owner operator of Salazar Meats out of Manassas, Colorado, which was a USDA inspected facility starting in 2010. We were actually, interestingly, we started as a value-add facility. So we kind of, in a certain way, kind of went backwards. We had to rely on Mel's for our USDA slaughter stuff, but luckily he was just 10 miles down the road. But then we grew in 2014 to incorporate our own slaughter facility. And I'll pass around this fun little, this was a Christmas card we did. This is like, a picture's worth 1,000 words, so just, you'll get the vibe, my last 15 years, that's kind of the way I spent a whole lot of my time was with a group of guys. Every once in a while, some girls. We employed 2 or 3 women throughout the 15-year period, but generally it was guys who were biting at the work. And we really produced the gamut. We did beef jerky, we did summer sausage, we went on the pork side, we did a whole array, bacon, hams, linked sausages, virtually you name it, we kind of dabbled in it within the value-added realm. And so I have a lot of the analytics and so forth behind that, and I think that's probably where people are going to be really interested to spend some time. But like I say, we have a few points we have to hit, and I think we're just going to kind of get right into it. But real fast on the introduction piece, and again, I think I'm just trying to save some time here. What I'm trying to get the sense of in the audience is the species. So I guess raise the hands if goat is your primary jam. We got one goat. Is that a goat? There's a goat. Oh, cool. Okay. All right. And then if it's sheep. So it looks like about half for roughly sheep. And then pig. I'm pretty sure that was no pig. All right. Any pigs? We got some little. Okay. Maybe not your primaries, huh? Not your bread and butter, but. Okay, and then beef. Okay, truth be told, I'm going to have the most insight to offer on the beef angle and on the pork angle, because I was very, from the vertical integrated chain, I've been involved with both of those animals. Sheep, I know some about because we process them, but I never really have dealt with sheep or goats myself, besides when I was 10 years old in 4-H. Big lambs for a couple of years, but I'll tell you it's not there anymore.
Will you have any insight on chicken?
A little bit. I did chicken tracker style chickens that I was just directly marketing. I had 3 chicken tractors and did 150 at a time. But I think that needs to be a minority topic. Again, I mean, just in the interest of time. But if there is time at the end, I'd be happy to have a few thoughts on that anyway. But let's go ahead and jump right in. So marketing. So the Bionutrient Institute. I'm going to read through this real quick, and I'm just going to encourage folks on their own time to do a little more research. I think this is one of the most promising marketing angles for this type of work that's happening right now. The research that's going to correlate folks who are actually doing regenerative practice, actually have healthy pastures, and the actual nutrient quality of that meat. And a lot of this data is done. They're trying to collect it's like a 750 ribeye, I think, is their goal. They're at at least last time I checked, it was they were at 300 or 400. But they're doing so much work to correlate just the way these animals were raised. And so it goes so much further than organic. Let me go ahead and read this. This little intro into what they're doing at the Bionutrient Institute explains it very well. So what is nutrient density? Nutrient density refers to the amount of nutrients in a food or crop. The conventional assumption is that all carrots or all milk, for example, is the same nutritionally. Our experience with our nose and tongue, validated by our lab work for the past 3 years, is that this is not true. In fact, one carrot can have many more nutrients in it than another. We understand that is the combination of how a crop is grown, its variety, microbiome, the weather conditions it experienced, etc., that cause it to have higher or lower levels of nutrients in it. Many types of labels, certifications, and marketing say something either is or isn't something binary. For instance, a crop may be certified organic and another one is not. In our experience, some organic crops have high levels of nutrient density and some have low levels. So currently, this label certification does not guarantee nor address nutrient density. We are working to develop the data sets and instruments to allow discernment as to where in the continuum of nutrient density a crop exists. And this is not just plant. They are doing a ton of work on plants, but the beef, they're putting a lot of energy into. For example, a carrot may be in the 20th percentile, but a carrot could be in another day, maybe in the 80th percentile. So it's kind of, in a way, I think it's great. It's like going to push a lot of accountability that your food is actually good food and not just these empty calories. An incredible effort, many years, tons, a huge team of research involved, a lot of data. You can go on their site right now and see a lot of that data. So that's there for anybody who wants to do. And that's, yeah. If I was still on a night covered and was I would be probably pulling from there for some of my marketing. But this is this first little phase of the marketing is to kind of just have a conversation about different routes that you can take. Real quick, I want to go ahead and read this or watch this little clip. Dr. Berg has a lot of, actually he has one on the Bionutrient Institute. If you just like Google or on YouTube did Dr. Berg Bionutrient Institute, you would get a cool summary on the efforts specifically related to beef. But he talks a lot about grass-fed cattle and the benefits of pasture-raised ruminants, etc. And this is just, chock full of a lot of potential marketing ideas. Oh, for audio.
You put closed captions on?
We need, is there any way to beef up the audio? Put your mic. Just put your mic on it. Audio's all the way up. That's not going to be very loud. And it's closed caption. Alright, here we go, we got captions. Here we go, let's see.
Grass-fed beef is the biggest scam on the planet. It's a complete lie. What I'm going to share with you is going to piss you off. Less than 1% of beef sold in the U.S. is truly grass-fed. This whole idea of grass-fed is just filled with loopholes all over the place. In 2016, the USDA dropped the official definition of grass-fed. All of the cows are grass-fed. It's the last 3 to 6 months where they're fed other things, like grains and some other ingredients that I had no idea. Over 99% of all the beef that people are buying is not fully grass-fed, despite what it says on the label. There is a tremendous amount of beef sold to America from other countries. And with a little bit of processing, like packaging the beef, it now becomes a product of the U.S. In other words, this country of origin labeling rule was repealed, which means revoked, for both beef and pork. Here's just another example of the lack of transparency where, well, at least if it's from America, it's probably healthier when it's actually not even coming from America. And by the way, as a side note, did you know that when you eat a burger from a fast food place, the number of cows that hamburger comes from literally can be over 100 different sources because they have this entire processing plant where they're getting meat from all over the place. What people need to realize is what we're talking about is a cow that's very sedentary, that is fatty, and the reason why it's tender is because it has barely any collagen. And without collagen, it's very, very tender. People do like marbled meat that's tender, but what they don't want to know about is how that animal is raised, because what I'm going to tell you now is literally going to make you fall off your chair. And it's what these animals actually eat. You might think, wow, grains. Well, it's probably a bucket of whole grains, pretty healthy. No, they actually feed these animals in the feedlot something called DDGS, and that stands for Dried Distillers Grain with Solubles, aka the waste product from making ethanol. They take dead corn, which is field corn, it's inedible, you can't eat it. What are they going to do with this GMO waste product filled with glyphosate? It's basically the toxic byproduct from making ethanol. And what I found out is because of the subsidies, taxpayers' contribution to this, the cost for 1 metric ton of this waste material that is fed to the animals, it's roughly $150. Now do you see why they can make so much profit on this? Because what they're trying to do is they need to put on about 600 pounds of extra weight on that cow. And the only way they can do it is with something so cheap, $150 per metric ton. Crazy. So that's the base, and then they add a little fiber, they add limestone, some synthetic vitamins and minerals, and then they add something else called Matanza. It's an antibiotic. Antibiotics are used on a regular basis in feedlots in the US. And the reason why they use these antibiotics is because it increases weight gain. Even your grass-fed beef has been given antibiotics. Unless it says on the label, no antibiotics, but that's not all. They also add in the US something called beta agonist. This is a medication that enhances the muscle growth to increase another 30 pounds of muscle. And it's something that mimics adrenaline. There's been some studies that show that that can actually increase anxiety in humans if you consume that food. So there's 2 types of feedlots. You have one that's closed, like indoor, and they have another one that's open. Let's talk about the one that's closed first. That animal, which is 1,500 pounds, only gets a space that is 24 square feet. If I were to ask you how much that is, you might have to measure it out. But let me just tell you, a parking space that you drive your car into is 128 square feet. So let's compare that, 20 to 24 square feet to 128 square feet. So basically, it's 1/6 of a parking place. Not a parking lot, a parking space. So basically, you can fit 6 cows into 1 parking space. That's what they live in for 3 to 6 months. They have to make them sedentary and to add all this cheap food to gain the massive weight. So that way you can make the meat marbled and have it very tender, aka a very sick animal. That's what you're eating. Now the open space in the feedlot doesn't get that much more space. They get roughly about 150 square feet, which is about the same size as a little bit more than that parking space that I just talked about. But again, not much space. So how do you find truly grass-fed beef? You need to look for this, 100% grass-fed, because if it just says grass-fed, it doesn't mean anything. And I highly recommend you spend a little bit more for this higher quality of meat, because that way you support the small farmer that seems to be squeezed out of this marketplace. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
Well, a lot of marketing leads, right? Like a lot of angles. You got human health angle, you got environmental angle, you got animal welfare angle. So let's just have a little brainstorm. I'm curious about your earnest and your honest best shot at your story, at your marketing. And so let's throw some stuff on the board, and then you'll take a little second, and then if there's people that want to share out kind of like their position statement, like what makes you special, why should people buy from you, then we can maybe do that after. But let's brainstorm a little bit. Do you know, Patty, is this just like a off now? Or maybe just roll it. Where'd those markers go? So anyone got anything? What's a marketing angle you're wanting to pursue? What do you think?
Grass-fed.
Grass-fed. 100% grass-fed or just grass-fed?
But you should not be grass-finished, not grass-fed.
And grass finish.
Grass-finished is different than grass-fed.
And it's slash finished. Yeah, so I did the farmer's market here in Taos for 10 years. Virtually didn't miss a market, and got that so many times. They wanted to clarify, they wanted to know. Wait, so did it just start its life, or did it have its whole life on grass? That's, more and more, that's who's gonna be at the farmer's market. What do we got?
You can't always finish with grass. Twisted wheatgrass is common in a lot of New Mexico, northern Mexico. If you finish on twisted wheatgrass, it's going to taste bad. And the cows love it. It's what most people call the wild taste when they kill an animal.
I'm not gonna push back on you, brother. I'm not, this is, anyone who's been in the grass-fed and and especially, right, the grass finishing part on cattle, knows that it's a huge, huge challenge. In this region in particular, it's a huge, huge challenge.
Not profitable, I can't do it here.
You know, we used to have a milk cow. You could feed her hay overnight, milk would be fine. But she was eating twisted wheatgrass for the day, you couldn't make it. So you have to be careful, Bob, and I'm not saying that's not a good idea. We pretty much finish our own that we butcher on grass fed, but it's not on twisted wheat.
But yeah.
Like other grass.
Sure. Yeah, you got to be careful. Yeah, I have that personal experience myself in the early years of doing farmers market, and realizing that I couldn't take every carcass that was coming out to the farmers market, because if I wasn't at least kind of getting into a select type grade, there's just too many complaints on the toughness, etc. And that's what we're really struggling with. This was a really interesting insight I had. It's funny. It's like one of those things that's been in front of me. I mean, for decades. It's just like it just got real clear. And I think it hit me like this because I was dealing with sheep people tonight. I don't really deal with a lot of sheep, but I don't think you guys have nearly that problem, and that's a huge benefit to y'all. I mean, I have eaten so much lamb that is 100% grass-fed ranches, its whole life on pasture. That has been wonderful. And then beef has been certainly hit or miss. And again, I could we're kind of tight on time, so I would unpack that a little bit, and I'm happy to do that with people individually. But we ended up sourcing our beef eventually from, just so real quickly to do it, from someone in the Fowler area, south of Pueblo up there. And he was on this massive 14,000 acre property, and he was doing rotational grazing on that at a pretty massive scale. And what he was doing was mixing in the Wagyu genetics with the Angus genetics, and he was regularly getting high select and choice, and every once in a while a prime animal would even come through on grass, 100% lifetime on grass. So, again, this is kind of, would be a lovely conversation, I know, for the beef folks in the class to really talk about breed and feed. We don't have enough time to get real in those bushes right now. But what else in the lamb folk? Obviously, the pasture raised. Yes.
Marketing organically raised.
Organically
Which
raised.
is different from organically certified.
Where do you get, how do you prove that it's organically?
You have to have every plot, every land tested, because
It's wild.
Okay, so the property that you're on does not have fertilizers, artificial
I know, but
fertilizers.
is there any way, because there's no place in New Mexico that certifies it.
It's a
No,
it's a marketing thing, it's organically raised. It's
Yeah.
not certified, if it's going to be certified, then you have to have all the
Certifications, because I used to
So
certify them, but then they stopped doing it in New Mexico, but you can still say it's
You can
organically.
say it's organic,
So-
it's basically your reputation.
As a marketing.
Yeah, so here's the thing. We're going to talk about that in the labeling part, in part B, because it's like I put here. So like, right, I did this was for the Mother's Day celebration at Kit Carson Park many years ago, and right down here I'm putting, we raise 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef and free-roaming Berkshire hogs. We're proud to be locally owned. On my point of sale stuff, I can honestly say whatever I want. That's just have my level of integrity. USDA can't come around and bash. I don't think I can use their logo maybe, but I can say what I want to say. And that's just between me and the customer. However, as soon as that goes onto a label, that's the different thing. And it's gone through the plant, and now there has to be verification of all that stuff, any affidavits on file, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, if you're doing it, and especially if you have a small market, which I think that's the situation with a lot of folks, you have a small market, just be transparent about your methods. And Again, maybe they're better than organic. You have an amazing pasture. The nutrient density of your product is like just way higher than what's at Albertson's meat counter. And you're free to tell that story.
Is there a lab that'll test our beef for
Sure.
density?
Yeah, you could get.
Sure. And this would be a great place to link up with that. If you just reached out to Nutrient Institute,
Oh, yeah.
they would hook you up with labs. They're linked up with so many labs doing this work all the time right now.
Can you comment on the instrument, like the affordability of those instruments for small scale? Like if it's vegetables or for beef, or is that something that?
You know, I haven't done a lot for like analyzing like protein and different micronutrients and stuff like that. The testing that I've done with labs has been on the pathology side. So it's been for salmonella and E. coli and all that stuff for my USDA certifications. And those tests, typically per test, they range anywhere from like $15 to $50. Like a Listeria one, that was a more expensive one. The salmonella ones were cheaper. Generic E. coli is cheaper than if you do E. coli 0157 to try to target that specific one. It gets more expensive, kind of more sophisticated. But I'm not sure what that would cost.
I mean, I just imagine a beautiful future where you can like scan, 2 carrots and
Well,
it tells you which one is
Well, it's
better.
crazy. No, check out this nutrient. It's literally some kind of technology of using some kind of infrared scanner or something.
Yeah.
That boom, and it'll tell you.
Yeah, because that's the type of consumer that's showing up at farmers markets and, those
I think this is the
specialty
future.
stores, that's what they want.
Yeah.
They ask the questions, but it'd be great if you could give, some data to back what we're talking about.
Totally, yeah. You knock it out of the park, right? You're the only one who's walking up and proving.
And I mean, that's where I go, even with the grass-fed and finished, is I worked as a professional chef, and, there is a difference perhaps in the flavor in the profile, but the way you feel and the quality of your life when you eat the higher quality.
How much does that matter?
It's through the roof. I mean, it's crazy. You talk about people that go out to dinner at a fancy restaurant and get meat sweats, and they're I don't know what they're talking about because I'm not eating that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Whatever, low grade or lower grade.
So how do you want to articulate
I don't
that?
know. We got a lot of practice.
I mean, human health is the generic, right?
Yeah.
But no meat sweats.
You are what you eat.
Yeah, you are what you eat. That's no joke. Yeah, another angle that he kind of said it in that video we just watched, but like you're eating an unhealthy animal, right? When they go to the feedlot like that. But another video he goes on to say that it's basically these animals have like the same markers of metabolically diseased humans. Like these are diabetic, overweight cattle. Their flesh is really unhealthy. Now there's science still to be done to make the correlations about why that may or may not be so healthy for you. But how does that make you feel, knowing that you're eating this super overweight diabetic creature that you eat? So then, and I hate to call that angle that I just said kind of like the PETA angle, but it's kind of like the PETA angle if they did eat meat, right? Like they'd at least want the animals to be really healthy and feel really good. So I mean, there's the animal welfare. Does anyone else have any other burning ones? Because again, I'm going to move a little bit quickly through some of these.
My wife and I are just starting out on our chicken business journey. But like part of what we're doing is for our health, and one of the things that came to mind is like just chemical free, just like no chemicals.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other one is like the ability to put in like the heart and the liver and grind that into so we're on my family's cattle operation, so for our beef we grind it in the organs of our chickens in there, and just sort of like there's a lot of people interested in that for their health to have the organs in. I think there was my wife told me a name for it recently, but it can create a higher value for the beef in addition. But there's still some stuff for us to figure out on if we went to USDA processor, got 20-pound bags of ground, and then added our own organs, could we sell it afterward? So there's still a lot to figure out on how that would look like getting it to the end consumer, that type of product. But for our home, we've been loving it.
Are you feeding the organs to your chickens?
So when we butcher our chickens, we get their hearts, we get their livers, and then from our cattle, we get their liver. And so we got like 20-pound bags of ground of our cattle, and then ground the chicken organs and the beef organs into the ground. And you can taste it, but I'm like starting to like the taste, and it feels like you're having a multivitamin or something.
That's what they
So the
are.
whole idea behind offals is the heart, all that stuff is supposed to be more densely rich in nutrition. And so they're making it in what they call a primal burger, and you can do it, it's just, they
Yeah,
mix it
part of
ground
it.
beef, you mix your heart, they even mix
Yeah.
lung, kidney, all of it, but it's all over YouTube if you want. A lot of people eat
I
heart.
stopped my wife at the kidney. I was like,
Yeah.
that filters the feed, so I don't know.
They do all that.
I really hope the brain's grinding.
Yeah, brain too. They want it.
Just watch Liver King.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Look at that, so it's kind of natural, and not all feedlots do it that way. You know, the biggest thing I've seen in around Missouri, Texas, and all that is 30 times more space for cattle. No antibiotics, but what I gotta warn people is you can't take young animals there, they'll get sick. It's like putting a bunch of kids in a little place. When you don't, if you don't like give them the, what we would call human measles, polio, when they're calves, if you take them to a place like that where it's all natural, and they haven't done that, 25% mortality.
That's not sustainable.
No, you can't make it. So I don't claim organic or any of those things. I just try to do it as natural. But mine have eaten carrots. The fat gets kind of orangey because of the carotene. Sugar beets. They'll eat corn that's never been sprayed. But if humans would look at it, they'd go, oh, because almost all corn on the cob standing has worms. Almost all of it. Some of it's tall, some of it's short, and they intermix it with carrots or it's acorn squash, and they rake it and they windrow it, and then they put electric fence, and the cows go eat it in a roll, and that's how you get your nutrition. You can feed them cantaloupe, turnips. The only thing is, if you don't spray, when you look at the stuff, you're like, because everybody's used to the store looking at an apple that don't got worms. Almost everything there has worms because it's never been sprayed or treated.
But that's healthy.
Well, but you just got to know that when you look at it, it's.
If the worms won't die in it, then neither will we.
Yeah, so it's just, that's just how you do it, but it takes a little longer, but you get the marbling and you get the white fat. But it's a lot more expensive. And the problem is meat's sky high now, so it's hard to make the margins.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the crux of the issue across probably is where the prices are going right now. But in the interest of time, again, let's talk about the positioning statement real fast. Like when you talk to people, you have your elevator pitch, you have your one or two sentences to kind of have their attention. What's the most powerful message? What's the most powerful way you can convey what you're doing is special, right? So appendix 2 here, if you want to check it out, ask yourself these questions. Does your product offer a benefit to your target market segment that really matters? Is your product truly unique from others in the market segment? And if so, how? Is your product difficult to copy? Is there a unique story, history, heritage associated with your product? That's one we haven't really talked about yet. That's, I think, really big here in Taos, right? So many people are just going off the Taos name, or just the reputation and the heritage of this region. Are there elements of the production process itself that are special somehow? So kind of consider those questions, and take a couple steps, and just give a couple minutes, and then hopefully we'll get a couple to share out.
Does anyone need a pen? No.
All right, folks, I think we can come back and share a couple of these out. And yeah, again, encourage in your free time, keep cracking at it. Maybe you can try it out with some of your clientele and see how it seems like it lands, and be revising it over time. But does anybody want to share what they kind of came up with?
I said,
Oh, here we go. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
our chickens spend their lives eating organic feed and foraging on rice pastures. So, like, I think in addition to that, like, we have really good video and pictures to show like, how they're living. And we're also finding that there's not a lot of, that there's a lot of demand for chicken where the consumer knows where a little more of the story. It's like Lotus Farms is about one of the larger ones that provide chicken like that. So,
I can tell you do it. You get that going, and you figure out your regulation stuff, or even if you just do on-farm sales, and you figure out how to beat it like that. I mean, you're gonna be able to sell a lot of chicken.
I've been trying to get them to bring the chickens down to our ranch. They're gonna plague the grasshoppers.
You know, I'm kind of bugging the TCEDC that, because I think what's smart for a local kind of regional solution to the poultry thing, at least in the short term, to just encourage people to get into it more. To me, that's where the mobile unit makes sense, and that's where it works. I don't think it works for the beef. I know I'm here kind of developing that. I'm pushing them with all my effort to a stationary slaughter facility for the beef, but for the poultry, I think that makes all the sense in the world.
You're right.
So on farm, and you guys maybe rent it, a very nominal type fee, and you rent it, and then you do on-farm sales, and that's how you get around the regs. Okay, so got a little on chicken before we got out of here, but let's, yes sir, what was your?
No, well, something that seems to resonate with, because I typically sell sides of beef, and then I sell to one of the restaurants in town, occasionally burger or it'll be like the yearlings that I will attempt to finish, but that it's local, that it was raised in the mountains locally, you know, and so that, you know, in fact, I've had even clients challenge me and say, okay, well, I want to pick my beef, and they'll show up and, okay, I want a side from that beef, and they love that.
Boom, right? Is your product difficult to copy? Now, when you take that experience that you just said, and you juxtapose that against what the megacorp system is doing, I mean, it's a mile apart, right?
Right.
They're never gonna let you onto that site because they know like that animal's lost in the weeds of 100 other animals, you know, on the same grind bin. So there's no way they get to go out and say, I want that one.
Yeah.
So there you go. And what percentage of the cattle nationally are actually being raised and marketed in this way, right? A very small percentage. And the demand, I would say, is just getting bigger and bigger all the time because the system is being exposed more and more all the time for the levels of the problems they have. So that's great. Anybody else want to share? Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, sure, really quick. I'll do the hog angle.
All right.
So we've been talking about beef for a few minutes. But really, I think what people want to hear is what are the animals eating, right? And what kind of animals are they? So, you know, what are you raising and what are you giving them? That are two really important factors. And what I've done is latched on to the Berkshire, kind of a heritage-free hog. And people really like that, as well as we've partnered with an Amish mill up in Monte Vista, Colorado. We're getting certified non-GMO hog grower, and people like that part of our story. And so I think it's really important that you're able to kind of frame up, you know, what it is that you're raising and how you're doing it, and where
It's not like hey, I'm just here doing what the commercial system's doing, but with a little more space or whatever. It's like, no, there's a lot going. We have a lot of differentiation here, right? Feed, the animal breed, right? Because they're not. It's a Yorkshire and a Hampshire. That's what they're raising in the big plants, not a Berkshire, because we know Berkshire is slow growing.
That's right.
Yes.
So, our animals get animal welfare approved, we get certified every year.
Right.
And that guarantees that there are no GMOs, no antibiotics, and that the fields are not chemically treated. And so I can certify that there's no antibiotics, no grains, no GMOs, no chemicals. They are locally raised 100% grass-fed, grass-finished, and range-fed.
And I'm sorry, are you a beef contingent or a lamb contingent?
Beef.
You're beef, okay. That's awesome. Early in our history of our operation, we did that too. We did the American Grass-Fed Association, which doubled. You could get the welfare audit done at the same time. So that's great. So with what she did, she went and did this third-party audit. So it actually allows her to put that on her label. So then as long as you can get your processor to file, like your certification or whatever in their office, and you could get them willing to figure out how to get it into their label system, or maybe you bought them an extra sticker.
I have the extra stickers, but now there's a grant that's helping us develop the labels so that they can use.
Yeah, and that's one, the USDA, there's a lot of money out there on the USDA value adding side of things. It might not be worth the pain in the butt unless you have volume. Like you got to figure out some volume, but you can get a lot of your labels and marketing and all that stuff paid for through the USDA if you're willing to bear and grin the grant process.
What grant is that?
Well, I'm sorry, the other thing.
Value-added producer grant, VAPG. That's one that's just like always there since about 15 years ago or something. It's just pervasive. And yeah, Raul, I'm sure could talk more.
Yeah, it's the rural development, but the more important point is the relationship with the producer and the processor, right? And being able to, get the processor to be willing, right, to file the paperwork with USDA to get that approval and get that label, in their system. Because without that relationship, I mean, the processor would be like, well, I've tried with Mike down at Western Way, okay? And he's all about, I'm going to charge, 150% more than Salazar meat because I can. I've got you in the corner, right? And so it's really important that we try to help each other out, right? And these conversations before it starts.
Absolutely, and I can speak to that a lot from the processor side. And Raul and I actually have this whole history and whole relationship, and it is, it's like so if Raul wanted us to maybe go get a cool label so that his package looked a lot cooler than I'm going to show you the basic label we would put on, not that sexy. So Raul's like, we need to step that up. So he uses labels but bro, Now it's not just putting one label on the thing, we gotta go through your thing, we don't really have a distributor thing for it, and we're like pulling it off by hand and sticking, like, that's time, you know, it's gonna, and so, like, but I would argue for my processing plant, we were very reasonable. So like, if people wanted an extra label placed, were we at a nickel for you?
It was,
5
I
cents?
think it was a flat rate there towards the end. I think it was an extra $50 or something. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. It was
Maybe it was a nickel.
it was
Yeah.
nominal. It's not like we were like trying to rake someone because again, we're trying to support these local efforts, trying to support the marketability of all of our region. So we really, I think, had a reasonable approach, but it's true. They're going to be different. There's not a lot of them. There's not a lot of options for the USDA, and it's all very different personality and very different history behind each of those managers, and they're going to approach this stuff differently. This is one of the great things, so very natural moment to kind of plug the Matanza. Unfortunately, the value add stuff is probably not going to come online really quickly with it, but as far as being like your processing facility and us being, like, the point being for us to serve you to the greatest extent possible, all that energy and all that effort is going to be there. We might not even put the surcharges on for adding labels and stuff like that, because it's a subsidized community resource. It's different. It's not a for-profit. So, yeah, you might find some relief here when you get the darn thing going. But did anyone else really want to share that, their marketing angle before we go? Yes.
This is mostly true, but it's also a little bit aspirational. I move our animals to fresh, untreated grass every day of their life. They never need medicine. They feel no stress up to the last second of their life. And they're raised 2 miles from the store.
And raised 2 miles from the store.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's, you already know who you're selling to and everything, and that's all.
Yeah. I figured no one, how many people could say that?
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, absolutely incredible. Yeah, quickly.
So later, I don't know, I just want to know what you think the niche for this kill plant is going to be.
The niche?
Yeah.
What do you mean by niche? I'm just curious about
So
that.
like, because one of the things I thought you were really good at over there was value-added meats, the sausages, that kind of, these sticks. But volume-wise, I don't know if it would have the cooler space if you want to age past 14 days and that kind of stuff. So I'm
Come on, Pat. You know how problematic long-term aging gets for the processor.
Yes, well,
That's our bread and butter, is that space, that cooler space that
I
we
know,
invested
and
so
it's
much money in.
expensive,
And
but-
we need to move those through. If they're sitting there for 3 weeks and we can move them out in 10 days, you lost that whole, you see that? It's a double. We could have put a whole other cycle of production in there, and we lost it to hold.
But I never aged less than 14.
Yeah.
Never. Most of them somewhere between 14 and 21, and we actually measure the moisture, but it makes a huge difference in the quality of the steak.
Yeah. This is going to be a point of tension as it grows. When it's small, and I know, Pat, you're going to be right there, like, we're going to be really psyched to work with you, and let's bring it in. We're probably not going to be like thoroughly bonkers booked right away. So, like, of course we'll grant you because we don't have the booking, so we'd be happy to. But then what happens when we grow? And we start feeling that pressure. We're planning on at least getting one more hanging cooler out there. But, it could just be that we're just feeling so much pressure to get the animals in. And it's like, we got to make sure we serve everybody. And that is a point. But it is a little bit of a finer quality point. I'm assuming that we're going to probably always approve a 10 to 14 day age. But as we get really booked, that's probably going to be the extent of what we're able to offer.
Because you'll be killing sheep, hogs, everything.
Exactly. That's the thing, is we can't deny people. You know what I mean? It's a tricky thing. It's like, I think that's such like an artisanal level type thing that you'd be doing, that you might want to entertain your own space. And
Because I think about just chickens. You were saying killing chickens. I mean, who does it here? What local plant anywhere does it? That kind of volume.
and there's no, I don't think there's any, no.
Right, and so, and you don't hang them long, right? So, but then I remember like your sausages and all that. And that's the value added stuff that really can be.
And then
And you can go globally, just Taos wise.
Totally, and I agree that there's a huge opportunity there for sure. Mercedes, to give you her, she's completely motivated to pursue it as well. The thing is we have to walk before we run. And we gotta get the kill part and the processing part really solid and under our feet, and then I think we move in. And that might end up being a partnership that's in Questa, like the value-adding arm of this is actually in Questa. So we actually ship box meat, or maybe even sides and stuff to Questa where further processing gets done there, because we only have 2.5 acres out there, and we know that the most that we're gonna be able to put out there is 3 hanging coolers of 50, so 150 capacity beef. That's all we're gonna be able to do in that location. And so once we get there, you know, what do we do next? And that'll, yes, Sam?
Is there a way to kind of get both? Like I can imagine on my own space, building that cool spot, so getting the whole USDA thing done, but then moving the meat to someplace where I can have
That's exactly the thought that was going through my head as I was responding to Pat, and I'm like, okay, well, if you could invest in your own just holding area, like you're not really doing anything, I'm sure you could. It would be a matter, because you're needing to get it in there and then you're needing to get it back out to a processor again. So it's something about then, it's kind of like I haven't really heard about it, it's kind of like an exotic setup, but I think as long as you prove your CCPs, your critical control points, which would be temperature control for that, as long as you prove that, and you have to have a sanitation plan. Those two things, I think they would have to approve it.
And cold transport, cold chain.
Yep, the cold, and now that would be the job of whatever transporting mechanism was doing that part. But yeah, we're kind of set up with that infrastructure kind of with the mobile unit actually. Because you can take the beef in and out of there, it's just like for you to utilize that, you'd have to build it to where, you know, you have to have the elevations and everything just right to be able to rail them over.
And you would need a refrigerated truck.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Well, no, that's the mobile Matanza.
Okay.
The mobile Matanza can operate as that refrigerated truck.
And it goes just from slaughter floor to the customer's refrigerator. That's been approved by USDA.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying. So we slaughter it. We stick it in the, you know, over there by the landfill. And then Pat's like, nah, I need 10 more days. I need 10 more days. Okay, well, we've set up this system with the USDA where we can put it back into the mobile Matanza, take it to his location, unload him, let him hang out there, and then bring him back when it's time to actually cut him.
Oh, so there's no traveling space, I mean, there's no traveling.
It's that it's freeing up the space that's needing to kill and chill more.
Yeah, but the owner's not having to transport it themselves and lose that temperature.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, because the USDA I think would be quite amenable to the conversation because it's a unit that's already inspected, it's got washable everything, and then it would just be a matter of monitoring the temps during the process and during the holding time. I'm pretty sure it would go. I would feel really optimistic about that. It's something that could go. But whoa, you see, it's like the time. There's just not enough time. So great conversation about marketing. We needed to do that. We got some marketing check. I know there's a lot more there. And folks, feel free to reach out to me personally. I'm at a point right now because we're waiting on the town to figure out the plat for this Matanza. I'm happy to meet with people. I'm happy to go out to lunch with people and talk about these themes more. So please reach out to me if you want to. But the next theme is USDA exemptions. Okay. I think you guys kind of know probably for the most part what the pros and cons are of working with the USDA versus trying to go with the custom plants that don't have that certification with them. And yeah, maybe someone has something else to add or a story, but basically the big thing right with the USDA is if you go that route, you have the widest opportunity for sales. In fact, you have nationwide sales. I think theoretically you could even maybe have international sales. That never crossed that bridge, but there's, I'm sure, some way to do that as long as you go through the USDA. That allows you to wholesale. That's the main firewall that they're creating with this inspection services. You can't really wholesale your stuff if you don't have it inspected. And then, at least here at the farmer's market, when I was doing it, it was a requirement that you have your meat product USDA inspected. It's a greater chain of accountability. It is more eyes on the process. So some people might, next point, the customers could have a perceived sense that there's more safety or quality there if the feds are in there looking at what's happening. And typically it's better support for cold storage, holding your stuff, maybe creating If you needed, a month before to get your stuff out, you can maybe pay the processor a small storage fee, etc. Typically, you're going to find more of that type of resource because there's typically going to be more money invested in a USDA plant versus a non-for-sale plant. Now, cons, yeah, you're going to usually pay a little. I think it's kind of marginal, generally speaking, how much more you pay, but typically it'll be more expensive. There's only a few options in the region. You must book with a significant advance, almost without exception right now. And then despite cost, this is the sad one here, but despite the cost, the quality still may not be to the producer's desire. So you're like, wow, I'm going to a USDA plant, these guys have the feds in there and everything, and you get your product back, and you still have like 20% of bag fails on your vacuum seals, and you're like, oh my god, I just paid all, usually the vacuum sealing is somewhat of a significant price markup. And that hurts when you get your stuff back and it's going to get freezer burned. So that's kind of how I'm seeing the USDA. On the custom side, right, the pro is that it's typically cheaper. There are more options if you were just to count out the small plants, especially if you go into the San Luis Valley now. Like there's a bunch of them now.
Yeah.
Like about when I got out, it's like all of a sudden 3 more popped up. So there's if you're willing to travel a little further. But there are some, I know Matt here is using someone in Velarde, which I don't know who it is, but I need to share. And then we have our Padillas in Arroyo Hondo. We got someone in Eagle's Nest. I think they're like kind of more focused on wild game, but
they're seasonal.
They're seasonal.
Oh, Martinez, I could go on and on, Milwaukee, none of them have these, but anyway.
Yeah, and so then the cons, right, is it limits your sales. You have to get creative about the way you're doing it. A lot of people here probably know Joel Salatin, right? The way he got around a ton of what he was doing, and like his chicken, it's just on-farm sales. So there's just no wholesaling piece. Everyone comes to him to get it.
What's private contract?
Private contract, that's custom processing. It's the idea that it's between the grower of the animal and you as the processor, and there's a private contract there. It's another way people say custom processor, not for sale. And then yes, con, less oversight for food safety quality. That's just the reality. There's no third party involved. So it's really just if you trust this person, which I would say the ones I'm thinking of in the San Luis Valley are trustworthy. I do. I don't think they're swapping out meat or any of the stuff that you hear. I don't think so. I don't think any single one of them are doing that. But does anyone have anything else to add on? Like, did I miss something or yes?
Well, I've got a question. If you go to a not for sale facility, can you actually get your animals processed and then go back home and then sell the animals, like the meat packaged as such, if it's on your farm? Because I understood that.
So
you couldn't do that.
There's one thing that's kind of a
loophole.
It's a bit of a gray area, but the thing is, I think you kind of get in trouble when you go down the path. I'm going to give you an example of someone who did a really good job of trying to leverage kind of what you're saying, which is the retail exemption.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is the retail exemption, maybe you can get away out of the USDA part, but then what are all your local regs saying? Because your local regs might still be requiring that a restaurant be having inspected meat come in to be able to sell that meat. But here's an example of someone who did a bunch of the processing kind of like on the retail side. Have you ever heard of Polk's Folly Farm? Polk's Folly? So they're small scale, they're all in the vein of regenerative ag, and they have a hog herd, and what they did is they set up their own little kind of retail counter that got through all those local regs. Now they couldn't slaughter, they really wanted to be able to slaughter those animals there, but their local reg was requiring the animals at least be slaughtered USDA, so they had to compromise on at least that. So what they would do is they would send 8 hogs to us at a time, and this is in San Antonito, kind of eastern San Diego. So they would drive all that way for us to just kill and chill the animals. So So we would kill them, they'd get out of there for just $100 a pop. If we would have processed those animals for them, created the sausages and all that stuff, it would have been like $350 an animal. But they got out for just $100 an animal, and they came in their refrigerator truck and hauled those back with the USDA stamp on them. And then they had their retail counter that had all the local, so they could make all the sausages and everything there. But they still have to have that commercial kitchen to be able to do above board legal sales to the public. Yeah.
Some of the restaurants like to get meat in large portions, and then they want to cut it themselves also. So then now that would feed into what you're just saying, you want sides, whatever, and then they want to cut it, whatever to their.
Yeah, so this
is the USDA though.
Yeah, right, and you'll find pushback probably more than not from the USDA processors because now all of a sudden we're not making any money. It was a good model we figured out with those guys. Why? And exactly this issue of holding time, because I had the deal with them where they came and dropped those animals off like on Tuesday. We killed them, got them chilled down, got all the CCPs checked off for the USDA, and then they were there on Thursday, and they got them out of there, and so they didn't hold up our cooler time, and so then it kind of worked for both of us. But when it's beef, if like I killed that and I held it for 14 days, and then just let it out the door for $150 a head instead of $600 a head, I was like, it would be like, ouch, ouch, ouch on our ability to sustain. So it's tricky. It's like the exemption's there, but I wouldn't really recommend it. Or what I would do is I would talk to, if you know who you're trying to target, talk to them specifically and ask them. Because we see some of these conversations with Matt the other day, like Love Apple or Manzanita Market, Jen Hart. She has some creative sourcing of things that I think are utilizing that exemption, like wild boar. I'm like, okay, wild boar. Well, how the hell did that get USDA and get here? And I'm sure there's some loop, there's some utilization of this retail, but you have to find the person, because they might be putting themselves at some kind of risk by buying from you. So just know your buyer or potential buyer, and I would say ask them all those questions. What do you need in order to buy from you? All right, so USDA, okay, so, Appendix 4 real quick, just real quick. So, and this goes back to the conversation we were having about, your point of sales jargon, and then what goes on the meat. Because if you want to say your meat is 100% grass-fed, if you want to say it's organic, if you want to say, some people are doing the heritage thing. That was a big one that we had to work through the USDA for a grower near Del Norte that was doing the Scottish Highland. And so they came and provided the affidavits about the breed, the history of the breed in their herd, so that then they could put the Scottish Highland on the label. But to do that stuff, you're going to have to find the processor, like Raul was saying, that's willing to jump through some paperwork, hold some paperwork on file in the shop, and then also be willing to maybe change their labels or deal with a little bit of alternate labeling for that. But yes, it's mandatory. It's mandatory. And you see some examples here: raised without antibiotics, grass-fed, free range. But again, if you're going to the farmer's market and you're selling there, talk to your customers and put on your materials what you want. It's just that label that's actually on the piece of meat that they're getting is going to have limitations on what it can say. Okay, now just real quick, this next little portion is just to help you understand the technical limitations that the processors are working with. Does anybody know what kind of printer this is, or like these deli scales you see at Albertsons, or what the kind of generic category of technology these are? Anybody know? No. This kind of. Okay, well we'll send some of these around so you guys can see them, but this is a thermal printer. So this label is a very specific material to interact with the printer head that's on there, and it's not ink. It's just heat. It's just a heat impression, and that's why these things can just churn out labels for years, and you never have to rechange. I mean, until the actual thermal head breaks down. They get a little, like, if dust gets in there, you might need to wipe it. Is all you do. But otherwise, these things last for years and years and years and years. And these labels are, we got custom printing on this, so maybe they're a penny, but like when you get just generic, mass-produced ones that are on the shelves everywhere. These are a fraction of a penny a pop. So it's a real efficient way to get the labels on.
Does
Yes, ma'am.
sunshine, you know, like if it's, I guess you wouldn't want your food sitting in the sun, but is sunshine in those labels?
They're so resilient to like about everything.
Okay.
Yes. These are to cold, to freezing, to everything. They just stick on there. They last. They're amazing. It's like this.
But the print itself, like on receipts, the print goes away when the sun hits them. And those are thermal printed. But that's what he's asking about, those
Yeah.
ones with the.
I imagine that's a junky quality of printer. Well, look at the paper. That's a junky quality of paper too. It's like the cheapest, you know. These are, you'll see, I'll pass them around. You can check them out. And I think there's like more technology than one would imagine in this silly little thing. But this is an important point because, especially at small scale, a lot of times we're going to want to like try to DIY or save money or cut a corner. And I'm just saying, trying to save people from potentially just going on Vistaprint online because it's like so cheap, and printing a whole bunch of labels that you then take to your processor, but then they're sticking those on there, and they're not staying on, or they're fading, or something's peeling weird, or something. So just to say the deli scales that they're going to put on at the plant are going to be good and solid, but if you want to create any other fancy marketing, just make sure you go direct to a company and check the boxes of how you need that label to perform. There's way more technical stuff here than anyone would imagine as far as the specific adhesive, chemical that's on there, etc. I was definitely enlightened to that in my journey through this, because I tried to do the DIY thing early on and tried to print some of my own labels and had some disasters on account of that. So just trying to save anybody the stress of that. But I'll pass these around. Okay, so there's this one point I have on there about the 1 versus the 30. So like, when you go to your processor, they're going to have something that's like this. They're going to have something that like might have the safe handling or a blank, and then there's like a template in there. Hopefully they'll at least be able to put like your farm's name and your contact and that stuff. But typically you're not going to get much more than that unless you want to go to the next step of custom doing labels that work with their printers, which we had a few customers do this over time. But I'm going to send around this one that we did for ourselves. The thing was to get the company to do this, I mean, I had to order 10 cases, and each case had like 16,000 labels or something. I mean, it's absurd. But you know, at the end of the day, I'm getting one penny labels with some color, and then we put it through there, and it'll print the rest of the information that we would like. So you could work that out. Again, it's like the 1 versus 30. Do you have a product? Do you have a product that you know you're going to be behind for a long time, and that's at some volume? And if you have that, you probably want to work through figuring out how to make it efficient with your processor and how to look really nice. If it's a whole bunch of different products, and it just won't be feasible. At the end of the day, it won't be feasible to try to get a unique label like for like these 10 different products, unless you maybe became the sole source of the business for the processor, which I've not heard of that happening yet, but that would be an interesting story. And I imagine it could happen.
It's called JBS.
There you go. Yeah, that's what that is, right? It's a small scale, not so much. Okay.
Lucas, what is this thing called?
So this is a thermal printer. So yeah, so the money in this, the label's fraction of a penny. That's not where the money. It's in the technology, because that's a $3,500 unit. And this is about the smallest they get. You know, we always really wanted to have a 4x4 label, and some of the processors around have that 4x4. And that 4x4 I think is the best look at this kind of level of technology. That's what we're going to have with the mobile Matanza. And we're going to have roll stock packaging with the mobile Matanza, with the Matanza project. So your ground product is going to look slick, 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 I promise. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, roll stock is
that's it.
It's a lot better than individual packages.
Okay. All right, well, I think, let's see our time. Yeah, definitely, we need to jump right into the value-adding section here if we're going to get anywhere with
That's
it.
what you're going to be good at.
And that's kind of my forte.
Yeah, that's what I'm
So I would say just real quick, if you're a lamb person, would you review Appendix 6? If you're a beef person, would you review Appendix 5? And tell me if you agree, disagree with the live to hanging weight to finished weight conversions there. And we'll talk a little bit about that part.
You know, Lucas, real quick, my brother used to have a shirt, not like this with the beef with all the different cuts and everything. And underneath it, it said, "You think you have problems?" Good. Work out, get up and everything.
This is good.
Okay, so, I'll use the mic. So these are the three numbers you really have to know your numbers, right? Your economics, your pricing. You have to know these numbers. You have to know what your animal's going to be live, what that's going to convert when you harvest it, what that's going to convert to on that hanging weight basis. And in case that's how you're going to sell it, then actually you're done, right? And you're going to sell based on the hanging weight basis. But that's typically not what happens in the small scale. Typically you're going on to that finished packaging in some way, shape, or form. And so you have that finished or packaged weight. And then I want to add just the thought, right, that there's another way to think about, which is the boneless weight. Because like say you had an animal, a coal animal, and you're just like, okay, get that in. I want that turned all into summer sausage, for instance. That's a boneless yield. That's going to go even under what that packaged weight is typically going to be, because typically packaged weight includes some amount of bone. And all of a sudden you can't put that bone in there anymore, right? So knowing this, and you know, and it changes. This is an index, right? This is an index. Pat has his animals on his feed and his genetics. Raul's family has their place they're raising and their genetics. You can't really use an index. You can use an index, let's say this. You can use the index for your rough numbers. But when it comes to your specific numbers, you need to know how you're performing. And so you need to document, get the processors to document as much of this as possible. And I'd say furthermore, when you want to talk about by the cut, the only person I know around here that might be doing a cut slip, so like literally you can get the inventory of what you just did, every single package that Mel had that technology. I don't know if he's doing it anymore, because he lost his son there and he's not doing USD anymore. But I know in that facility, that's the only one I know regionally that could get you a pack list. Because guess what, if you don't have that guy doing it, this is you. Spread out your beef, every single piece. I think you need to do it. I think it's really important to really know how you're performing. Because if not, you're just kind of guessing. Guess what? If you're regularly 5% over or 5% under what that index is, by the end of your herd, if it's 100 units or whatever, that is a big difference. So I really encourage knowing where your weights are, knowing where your numbers are.
Plus, they don't all yield the same, no matter even if they're the same weight going in. It's just
Right. It's like you need to create your average, right? Because your average, I'll tell you right now, because I think this one is saying 60 or 61%. Am I right? I feel like grass-fed in this region was typically more like 55. And you might be more like 56 or 57, but I think when you do your number anyway, you want to go on that lower end, because then that protects you with your pricing. If you're imagine you have more, but you actually had less, that hurts you. But if you imagine you had less and you put your price point there, it can actually buoy you and help you a little bit. So you want to know where you're at, and then I would subtract 2% when you do your numbers. Okay, so now getting into value added. Is anybody not clear on the live, hanging, and finished weight and maybe boneless weight part? Everyone's clear on that. Okay. So then green weight versus finished weight. What does anyone think that's referring to in the value-added realm? What do you think green weight means?
Raw.
Yeah.
Yeah, not dry or finished.
Yep.
Which is
Exactly.
massive shrinkage.
Yeah. The way I would say it maybe might be ingoing or incoming or ingoing, right? It's like what you're starting the process with, right? So I put 100 pounds of meat in. Maybe. No, that's the so if we're going into value adding, right? It's like all of a sudden.
Wet weight.
Exactly, it's like the wet weight is an interchangeable term we would use for green weight. Yeah. So let's go ahead and everybody pull up Appendix 7, and this was a huge part of my business model. And this is the actual thing. This is actually what we did for years and years. However, it's with the pricing from 2022, which is crazy how much things have rallied since 2022.
Not even the same ballpark.
Not even. So, and I'm going to go ahead and run this real fast, just so we can kind of all see this. So this is my basic strategy for value adding our two main products that Salazar needs, which was the summer sausage, which was by far the biggest one. Which here, yeah, go ahead and
So
pass these around. This was our by far like the value-added product we sold the most units of. I mean, we had distribution deals with this stuff going into La Montanita. We had distributions deals with this stuff going up into the Front Range with the Valley Roots food hub in Moscow. We sold a ton of this summer sausage, and this is how I made money with it, because we wouldn't have made any money with it if we would have been using these finished animals like young steers and young heifers. We wouldn't have made money, or we would have to, let's say this, we would have had to charge so much more, and then would people have been willing to bear that price point? And I think we would have been so far out of the market on summer sausage, because we already were, being small scale and doing it the way we were, would they have still bought it? And we made the determination, no. We never shot for the stars to find out, but that could be a painful learning experience. But at any rate, so here's what happens. You got a utility beef. You got a 4-year-old mother cow that didn't breed up. A few years ago, she wasn't worth that much. So if you see at the bottom, it says utility carcass market. That was in April of 22. She was worth about 90 cents. So she cost $10.80. Now, assuming I have this true with the boneless yield of 35%, 420 pounds for the animal. So what does that turn into per pound? So that's some easy math, right? So all we have to do is take our money, our 1080, and divide her by the pounds we get out. And so that, this is going to look pretty cheap. Obviously, that's not even touching it in any way yet to process it. 420, so 257, right? That's what her boneless weighs. So I mean, because we're just turning this into jerky. So the rounds, boneless cuts, and then the rest of that being ground. That's not like a good cut for jerky. So that's an interesting point, that it's only about a fifth of the total carcass for boneless yield on a cow is suitable to make jerky with. Just about a fifth. Okay, so then the rest of it, if it's a utility animal, it's just going to be for grind. You can maybe try to sell some roasts, etc. with that, and you probably do okay. But this is what we were doing. We were just taking that 75 pounds, 18% of that, and making beef jerky, which only ended up, because our jerky was about a 38% yielding jerky. We only had 28.5 pounds of finished jerky from
What was the poundage here? Is that following you? 28.5?
28.5 on the finished weight. Yep. Because you had 75 pounds green weight going in, and then after we dried it, we were yielding 38% on our jerky. And again, we were yielding more like 39 or 40, but I did my number at 38 because it gave us a cushion. So that's all that we got. But then you would, multiply that by 5 because we're doing 3-ounce packages. So then you ended up with like 115 or something packages, of jerky per animal. And then on the summer sausage side, we had 345 pounds. And you'll see, I think on this spreadsheet, I'm putting it at 82%. On the next spreadsheet, you'll see I have it at 85%. It was more realistically 85 and maybe a little bit above that. Oh no, I have it at 85. I have the yield of the, sorry, I got a little confused there. I did have it at 85% for the finished weight yield. Yeah, so that is correct. And so you see.
So you have 293 pounds and then at 650 a pound finished weight?
Say again?
So is that what you're saying right there, that 85?
You're selling.
So the 80
Finished poundage for sale was 293 pounds right below.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. And so then I kind of did we're selling, that at $6.50 a pound wholesale. Obviously we had to go up because I'm going to do real fast what just happened in these last couple of years. But
Can't touch it.
yeah. But then you could do the green weight conversion, right? By using that 85% number, and then you see it went 552. So I mean, there's margin there, people, right? Like I was operating with some margin. Again, that's before it even went in our processing door, because of course I have to be, the facility, of course, huge investment. But then the people who are killing this thing, who are breaking it down, and then really it's at the point, maybe you say the point of value adding starts when you grinded it, or maybe after the grinding and once you start putting the spices in there. But at any rate, I leveraged that 257 to 623. And so that had to account for, right, the killing of it, cutting of it, grinding of it. Let's just go to the next.
What's the 257? Where'd you get that?
That's what I paid for the animal, and that's how many pounds of boneless yield I got out of it. So those 420 pounds, each one, cost $2.57
Per pound.
per pound. But that's before any processing.
Right.
Because usually there's you killed it and got it to the ground state or the jerky.
Yeah,
there's a lot of work that goes into jerky as far
But you have
as
to
trimming
include
the.
your costs. Like if I was paying you to do that, yeah. Right?
Say again?
That's your cost. You bought the animal, all that. Are you showing the cost?
Yeah. So typically I never owned cattle. I've never been an owner of cattle. My dad owned our cattle herd when I started for just 1 year. He hated it. The grandfather, grandpa died so many years before my dad inherited the cows, and he freaking hates the cows. And it was the year after I came back, he was still held on to them. So I managed the cattle for 1 year. And as when I was kind of starting this, and then he sold it to his brother, the cattle part of our ranch. And so then I was buying from my uncle, my cousin, and that's what we would do. We would just go look at what the market was doing, and I would pay him what the market was doing, and maybe add a dime on top because they're my family, and we could just even sometimes chew it right in, because it was there close by or whatever. So
I'm just wondering when I pay the processors, that cost in that 257 per pound yet?
No.
That's
no. This is at the market. This
Yes.
you just went to Monte Vista or La Junta, and you paid that much to put that cow in your trailer.
Yeah.
That's all that number is, right? And so we know the processor, and the thing is the processor's not using this number. The processor's using the hanging weight number, which is higher,
Yes.
right? So it's something like 650 or 700, right? And so and then the processing again, like back in 2022, it was like a little. Just your rough numbers could be thinking it's a little over $1 a pound for what I'm going to be doing to this animal to processor. And those days are long gone. And I just did the research on some of the local processors, so you guys can see. But I mean, basically everything is like 50% and more of what it was just 3 years ago. 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
Is that 257 the cost of goods, or what is that number?
So that's the market value. That's the market value of the animal. But let's call it this: the commodity market value of that animal.
So if you bought it as box beef, that you.
No. Live commodity. Live commodity.
Oh, Chihuahua, you're way off.
Yeah.
We got a lot more
So
expenses.
box beef, that's gonna be $1,800, roughly.
Yeah.
Well, let's just do it real fast for where it's at right now. So 4 and 20.
That 257, like,
Yeah.
if you
Is-
went to an auction and then have it processed, like, that's how much per
X.
pound.
Anyone got a calculator? I could do it.
Yeah.
So this is a lot of algebra 1. So
Yeah.
like these getting all these conversions between green weights and finished weights and hanging weights, it's just a ton of algebra 1.
1,200 pounds.
So what I'm doing here is assuming that it was 65% of the hanging weight to get to the 420. So hanging weight, it was at 646. 646.
$1.05.
So 420 finished weight, 646 hanging weight. Okay, then what do you think the processor is going to charge you to cut 646? I mean, I know what my numbers from, again, that's like,
It's $1.25 live weight minimum plus $125 kill fee.
right, so let's do it. So you say $1.25?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but then you also have to add the kill fee of what,
125, anything
right?
over 1,000 is $125.
Right. So, is anyone helping me with math? I'm going to go with math. So, 646 times 1.25. So it was already 800 before you even put the kill fee in. Dang, it's going up. It is going up. It's crazy. So 932.
Yeah, so I can't figure out how those guys are selling turkey for that price.
932.50. So you have to add that 932 to here. So 1,800 even maybe a little more right now, right? So it's like $2,000 to get the basic processing done on the animal.
We haven't made any.
But see, if you're working with a good processor who's not trying to hoodwink you, they might, because you really save time when you're just boning an animal real quick. And you might be able to cut the deal if you're doing the value add, because they're going to get that ground out of there really quick. So you can hopefully find some way to save on this number right here. You can say, hey, can you work with me on reducing that if we do a 300-pound batch of summer sausage, because that really makes it well for the processor. That's the kind of how I'd be thinking about that. But yes, one thing I want to do just real quick, because now, so just a few years ago, that commodity value of the animal was this 1080, but now we're at 150. Would I get a consensus that this same utility cow was 150?
Minimum.
And maybe even more.
If it's a nice fat cow, you can get about $1.72 to $1.68.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go there with it. I mean, I just reviewed Monte Vista.
Yeah,
And I saw some in the 160s, but I also saw some in the 130s, and then it seemed like the average was 150.
You gotta go to La Junta to get Monte Vista.
So La Junta is doing a 15%.
You can get $2 a pound for a bull.
But what about a utility cow?
$1.60 plus, especially if she's fleshy. If she's old or bony, but add anything you get at Monte Vista at 10 cents just to go to La Junta. Right?
So let's do it. So let's do it at 160 then. So then 420.
That's sold a 3-year-old cow for $2 a pound.
See? Right here, see? $2 a pound for a 3-year-old cow.
But she was fleshy.
But she has to be finished with fleshy. Because then she's ready to butcher right now. Because the ones that are kind of bony or neat, they'll put them on corn or something, fresh them, and then kill them later. But yeah, I did. But once you say you go to Loma, you have 10 cents.
I hardly remember this.
So, oh yeah, he's 1800.
Well, yeah, and now we got due processing, so we're looking at.
Exactly. Yeah. So check out what happened in 3 years. That utility cow was 1,080. Now she's 1,728. I think that probably is a fair number to say. But so just to get her back as ground beef, you're looking at the $2,600, $2,700. And so you have to take that number, divide it by your boneless weight, and all of a sudden ground beef. This is why we see it even in the conventional marketplace. They're struggling with all these forces as well, and why ground beef is just getting really expensive. It just is what it is.
It's the actual break even from JBS and all that's right at 503, but they're willing to dump it at 395.
Like
Why? I don't know how they get away with it.
some loss leader, and those guys, to give them their credit where credit's due, they have such freakish science going on, and they are capturing value from every single little part of the carcass, and that's where they're kicking the butt out of the small processor right now, frankly, and that's why they can do some of those things. They got a marketplace for collagen. They have technology stripping the collagen out of the hides, and that's going into beauty products, and like they have all those markets on lock. And it's so hard for us to get any of that technology and any of that expertise to play around.
$180 for a tongue fresh Japan. I have an ex-fireman that's way up there.
Stock your tongues, people.
Yes, right now.
Okay, so let's see here.
It goes fresh to Japan, they don't want to
All right.
Yeah, $180.
So I'm going to just point attention to a couple things. We're already getting really close to concluding here. But just look at this. So at the top of Appendix 8 and Appendix 9, the top left, right, you see the poundage of the animal wet or finished, and then the cost correlation there. And you see, for something like summer sausage that's holding a lot of its water, it doesn't jump that much. And then when you look at jerky, it's crazy, right? It's based on its finished weight basis. That beef at 650 wet is 1710. That's like what you're raw before you even start working with it. You have a 17 bucks into it, so to speak. So this is what I want to kind of leave you guys with on the value adding thing, and maybe get you thinking a little bit like the big guys do on this, which is they think of waste products for it. Pat's got a great idea that maybe we can figure out the retail exemption for it or not, but like tallow, right? This is a waste product. People aren't buying this, or they're only paying like $1 or $2 a pound if you can find anywhere to dump it. But what if you can get it into something that people all of a sudden pay $7 and $8 a pound for? Boom, it's this waste product all of a sudden turned into some gold. So that's an idea. Fillers, especially now. Look, if your beef or your lamb is just doing this right now, which is absolutely what it's doing, well, all of a sudden, we're in the land of green chili. And this is what a lot of people have done. High Country Meats is offering this, if you can get booked with them, but they're doing a green chili sausage. We did this for the same farm, Polk's Folly Ranch, and I'm not going to disclose because it's like their trade thing and everything's like what they're doing, but they put a ton of green chili. So check it out. They would come to us. We did have to with bushels of green chili to add into their pork, right? Because they were probably valuing their pork at the commodity. Like if they were going to go to the farmer's market or their little stand and sell it, they were probably going to sell their ground pork for something like $6 a pound. But they were bringing in the wholesale green chili from Hatch, and they're further down there, so it's easier for them to just go to Hatch direct, go to one and get it for like $2 a pound, the green chili. And then we're integrating this green chili at a cost of $2 per pound with this pork that's so much more. But then they sold that stuff for 10 and plus in their shop, and boom, they created margin. So, jerky's a tough one, right? Because you're taking all of that away, and we were seeing it with like Old Santa Fe. So our jerky was a 38% yielding jerky. Old Santa Fe Trail is more like a 30 and minus % yielding jerky. So for them, how do they keep their price point in control at any level when they're letting all the water evaporate into the air, right? So if you can think creatively, or maybe even mixing species. Like lamb is a really expensive one. Well, maybe you figure out how to get a pork. Pork almost always is going to make the sausage better. So that pork is just like the king when it comes to sausages. It's almost a full-on consensus in the field. And
That's right.
yeah, and so it is cheap. Pork is amazing. Pork, they throw 10 babies and they get to wait in,
6 months, 7 months.
well, yeah, we're not doing the commercial thing, Pat. We're giving them more space and we're giving them better feed, so they're taking an Indian heritage breed. I mean, our Berkshires we're at 8 months. I don't know where you guys. So that margin, it hurts you, but that's what gives you your position, right? But still, all that considered, pork is still way cheaper than ruminants to produce. So maybe you figure out. Yeah, and another one, specifically Matt and I have been working a little bit on maybe a particular one, because mutton, right? Your coal animals, and I see an opportunity there with the coal sheep. However, the USDA is maybe making it difficult because I believe if you are doing the mutton, they didn't used to require, or they were a lot looser about designating what was mutton and what wasn't, but now they're doing an inspection on every single one. And if you're over that year, what they think is a year, which they do this like bone, cut into a bone and decide if it's calcified enough, then you are stuck with mutton, and I don't know how good mutton is going to look on a label versus lamb. So that might be a sticking point for adding value to the sheep, but I don't know. Just figuring out, right, this is how the industry thinks. They think, they know they have this damn expensive thing. Well, is there some kind of fillers or some kind of thing? And I'm not saying like in any like dishonest way. I think there's just ways we could say that are creative that can add value. I think that's how I would want to think about it.
I thought you were really good at the value-added thing, so I'm hoping you bring it here. Because with a lot of different smaller operators, and from land, goats, that's a place that even under like one corporate or local label under, they even hear this group, you could sell sausage thinking even globally. Because it's a package that stays, doesn't get that long, and doing it right, like you were doing it, you have the flavor and all that, you can create a margin, and then you don't have to always think of high-end animals being finished in a certain way, because that's the hard end for us.
Exactly. Yeah.
Forage.
Huh?
Forage.
Yeah, because we have droughts, we have winter, and it's try and grow enough of that stuff that is going to make them finish in a relative. Taking 3 years to finish the grass finish, to actually make it where it tastes good, you can't make it cash flow. So you got to send them somewhere. So that's why I say that's something you could really work at. Like some of these other things that
this is the model. The model that we have right now for the Matanza is that any of y'all that have your own label and want to market your meat, please bring those animals to us. We'll do a good job of killing them, cutting them, wrapping them, getting your information on that label, working with you if you want to do some beautification and enhancements to your marketing. We'll do everything we can to work with you on that. But then when it comes to this aggregation idea, I think is what you're kind of getting at, Pat.
Yes.
Because the quality of local grass-fed finished animals is so all over the place,
yes,
and not meeting some of these mouthfeel and other metrics that people would want, taste, etc. We're just going to do a ground beef. We're going to aggregate coals. We're going to aggregate coals, and that's, it's crazy because when I did the initial business modeling for the Matanza, it was more in this realm, and now that it's in this realm, it's hard. It was $3 and $4 cost of product sold, and now it's more like $5 or $6 cost of product sold. And so because that means we have to sell it at $7 to make anything, and then that means the retail has selling it at $10. And is the market going to bear that $10 ground beef being produced locally? Because I think that's the reality of where it is right now. And the thing is this is everybody. it's the big guys aren't, they have their tricks, but they're not exempt from this. They're like saying, oh crap, when is this gonna hit the top? So
Only part of
we're all in it
is-
together, we're all in it together either way.
It's the call part.
So, you know, guys, I like 1 minute to quit in time here, and we didn't quite get to some of the value-added stuff I would like to, but just kind of had to honor the flow of the conversation. And this is self-explanatory for the most part. And any part of this worksheet that wouldn't be, and all of the basically the attachments behind that can help inform that. I have pricing on there from Sunnyside Meats in Durango, which is one of the most expensive local processors. I have pricing on there from High Country Meats in Raton, and also their product offerings. There's pricing on there for wholesale spices. This is like a wholesale spices. This is how I got my black pepper at Salazar Meats in these 5-pound bags for like crazy cheap. That's a hustle. We're not talking about the little spice kits at the grocery store. That's a hustle when you know what these cost and how many portions they get out of each one of these. So you have all the tools there to develop and work with the idea of your own value-added product. I'm happy to do that with you too. As long as there's time in that office, more than happy to do that with you. But I think because folks want to, I mean, if there's folks that want to stay and chat with me, I'll stick around too. But we are at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.